Hey everyone, my name's Travis. I'm from MacInspires, and today we are going to make a turkey napkin ring holder together with TinkerCAD. All right, let's get started. So, basically, a napkin ring is exactly that. It's a ring, and we have a ring here that we could use, or we could use this torus. We're gonna use the ring. So we're gonna drag out the ring. And the ring, to fit most napkins, we're going to want it to be about 4 centimeters by 4 centimeters. So if we click on one of the edges and then we click on the number, the easiest way to get to 4 centimeters is to type in 40, which is in millimeters. So 40 millimeters by 40 millimeters, and 40 millimeters is 4 centimeters because there's 10 millimeters in every centimeter. So this ring now is 4 centimeters wide and 4 centimeters deep. And if we want to see how tall it is, if we click up here on the square that's in the center, or hover over it, it'll tell us that it's 5 millimeters, which is half a centimeter. A little small. So we're going to make that bigger. We're going to make that 1 centimeter. And this ring is not only going to hold the napkin, but it's going to be the body of our turkey. So we are now going to spin it around so it's facing us. So instead of the ring being on the work plane, it's going to be 90 degrees towards us. And we can see that now it's standing up. However, it's into the work plane, it's underground. So we're going to click on it, and we're going to use the cone, and we want to raise it above ground. The exact amount doesn't really matter right now because we're going to add the feet. And the feet are an existing item inside of our characters section. So if we go to characters and we scroll down, we are going to see a chicken foot. We're going to add 2 chicken feet. If I click on it and drag it out, and click on another one and drag it out, I'm going to put them close together. You can see how basically their part of their feet are touching. That's going to make it a little bit more stable, make it potentially last through more than one Thanksgiving. And then we're going to use the ring. We're going to move the ring and use the arrows on the keyboard to be really precise, as opposed to using the mouse, which may make it all over the place. If I use my arrows on the keyboard, I can get it real precise in the area that I want it, left, right, and back and forth. But for up, down, I still need to use the cone. So once I get it where I want it to be, over the legs, then we raise it up. We want it to be just so you don't see those little parts of the legs anymore. If we go too high, it's not going to be connected. You could have them even showing a little bit. There's no harm in that, just a little bit like that. And now we have our turkey belly, body, and our turkey legs. And here's the fun part, the more complicated part. We're going to add a bunch of feathers going up and around before we add the head. To do that, we're going to go back to basic shapes, and we're going to drag out a cylinder. Now the cylinder, we want to be pretty thin. We're going to have it be half a centimeter, which is 5 millimeters. So to do that, I'm going to undo and show you again. We click on the white square on the top of the cylinder, and then we could drag it down, and where we could type in the number to get to 5. And now, using your eye, this part doesn't have to be exact, we're going to stretch it up. You don't want to go too nuts. You want to just stretch it out, probably no more than 70. So I'm going to go down a little bit more to 61 tall. And we basically have our first feather. So this feather is going to start our turkey. So the first one's the hardest one. Once we have this one there, the rest of them are going to be easier. We're going to take this And similar to the ring, I'm going to look to the side of it. If I look straight on, I don't see the right arrow to move it. This will spin it on the work plane, and this will flip it over the wrong way. I want to flip it over using this, which will bring it upright 90 degrees, just like we did with the ring. And now, before I drag it upright, I'm going to move it so it's in the center of the body. And now that it's in the center of the body, now I'm going to drag it up so I have a nice tail, or feather tail, sticking up right out of the center of the top. Now this little part down here, don't worry about that. You don't want it to be like this because that's really fragile. It won't last. It's going to be difficult to print. And once people start handling it, or you need it for more than one Thanksgiving, it's going to break off. So we're going to have it go in a little bit. And this part inside here we're going to remove later. So don't worry about that just yet. So we have our first feather, and we have our ring and our 2 feet. We're going to continue with more feathers. So, make a turkey napkin. We're making a turkey napkin holder. Yes. Don't forget to name your designs, folks. That's always important. As a matter of fact, at MacInspires, we always put our name before the item that we make. That way we know whose it is, and it's easy for us to keep track of the prints. Anyways, going back and forth. You guys can probably hear some of my family in the background. Today I'm doing this tutorial from home. I have 2 dogs and 2 cats. So they love 3D printing, especially one of them. Whenever the printers are going, she literally hangs out with them all the time. But I digress. So this feather, we're going to duplicate it. It's up here on the top left. I'm going to hit duplicate. And now it looks like it didn't do anything, but there's actually another one right there. And I'm going to use the arrow right, not my mouse, because I don't want to move it any other direction other to the right, other than to the right. Once I use the arrow to the right a little bit, now I can take this and I'm going to skew it, or make it askew. And I'm also going to bring it down a little bit. Now, if I duplicate again, it's going to follow that pattern. It's pretty wild. If you didn't get that to happen, it means that you may have clicked something else before you started duplicating again. And it doesn't work if that's the case. So if that happens to you, you could just take this one, what you did, duplicate that one, and then spin that one a little bit, and then move, oops, I went in the wrong direction. I went forward towards me. And I always tell my students not to redo it yourself, so I'm going to hit undo, go back, and I'm going to bring it down, and then just use the arrow to the right, not forward or backwards. I'm getting a similar effect. Now if I don't click on anything else other than duplicate right after that, oop, sometimes it follows it down, sometimes it doesn't. So you can see that time it didn't for me. So I'm just going to do it manually. I'm going to bring another one down a little bit, and then I'm going to just tilt it a little bit like that. So you could do as many feathers as you want. Take as long as you want to make a bunch of them, or just have a few. I'm going to do 3 on each side and the 1 in the center. So we could do this manually again on the other side, but it's much easier for us to select these 3. And when I do that, I want to make sure I don't click on anything else. So I could start over here and select them just 1, 2, 3, right? I don't want to go too far. So I'm going to just select these. And now I'm going to duplicate them. And now I'm going to flip them. I go to flip, and then I hit this one, not that one, not that one, this one on the bottom. And now I'm going to use my left arrow to move it to the left, and voila! Obviously I didn't go back and forth, because then it would be, the feathers would be more forward or backwards than the other ones. So all these feathers are together. And we can add more feathers if we want to get more depth with it. We can add more feathers. There's a lot of ways to do it. And from here you could get creative and do it on your however you would like. Here's a tip if you want to follow the tutorial here. I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to take this one. I'm going to use the arrow towards me, so it's going to come towards me a little bit. And you can see that this one now is further in, and I'm going to make it smaller. To do that, I'm going to hold down Shift when I take the top height item. I'm going to hold down Shift and drag it down a little bit. Now you can see I have another feather that's smaller, both in length and what's the other dimension? Basically, not just the height, but also in the other planes. So in technical term, it's X, Y, and Z planes. Anyways, so now that I have this thing, I'm going to basically just put it inside the other feather, and I can continue with this. I could hit duplicate. Oh look, do that other trick. It's pretty cool. I could keep that, but I don't want to go that nuts. I'm just going to have 2 layers of feathers. So instead of getting that result, if I just go back and duplicate it again, it'll give me a normal one. And again, I use my arrows to move it. I'm going to use arrows to the right, and then I'm going to spin it. And take a little bit of time here. I can get a bunch of layers of feathers. For now, we're going to move on. Our turkey is headless. We can add a head by basically taking a sphere and dropping it near the bottom of its body, more or less where we want it to be when it floats, when we push it up. And I'm going to push it up. Now mine, I don't think. Ooh, yeah. See, it's not connected. You always have to move around and make sure that your thing looks right. And that sort of looks right here, but it is not. So I'm going to use the arrow up to bring it back. And you can see that my turkey head is now on the body, but it's maybe a little too high up, maybe a little too small. So I'm going to hold down Shift to make this larger. I'm going to hold down Shift and take the white box and drag it up a bit. That looks a little better, right? I want the head to be connected to the ring. We don't want it to be too high. We don't want it to be too low. We can have it go in a little bit. Because ultimately we're going to chop all this off so the napkin can fit in. That's going to be the last thing we do. Now that we have a head, the nose and the eyes are also one of the harder things we're going to do. Because we have to. You can use a tool called the work plane, which we're going to use a little bit later, to get things onto the face. But I'm going to do it basically the same we've been dragging things up and over the whole time. By the way, you notice a lot of times I don't use straight front or straight to the side. I'm using something where I could see a little bit of the top, a little bit of the left, a little bit of the right. Even just a little bit tilted is always better than straight on. There's sometimes where you want to go straight on, but it's pretty rarely. Maybe when just you're aligning things or making sure it looks right. So I'm going to go over here again, and we want 2 eyes, which are basically 2 more spheres. So I'm going to drag this one out. I'm going to hold down Shift and drag the top down to make it smaller. And now I'm going to drag it up and push it in. Say hi to Big Panther. Say hi. So the eye is floating. So if I click on it, it's best to use my arrows instead of the mouse because it's going to be more accurate. And now I have an eye inside the head. Instead of dragging out another sphere, the easiest way to get another eye is to duplicate this first one that you have more or less correct. And once you duplicate it, again, it doesn't look like you did anything, but there's another one there. And if we hit the arrow to the right, boom, 2 eyes, turkey nose, cone, pyramid, up to you. I'm going to use a cone. I'm going to drag out a cone. That's going to be a huge nose. Or wait, it's not a turkey nose. Duh. Turkey beak. My bad. Turkey beak. This is a big turkey beak. So I'm going to make it smaller by using the same thing we continue to do to make sure it stays the same shape. I'm going to hold down Shift and make it smaller. And we have the nose on the floor. We want to spin it. Whoop! Look, I did the wrong thing. No big deal. Just hit undo, and then I look for the right one. So I must have clicked on this one to the leftish on the top. I want this one just on the top on the rightish. And then again, 90 degrees. All these things we're doing for the turkey are 90 degrees. And then I bring it up. Ooh, I got real close. You can see it's not connected because there's still this little black rim. So I'm going to use the arrows and push it in. And there we go. So we have our turkey. And if we want to stop here and get it ready to actually hold napkins, the only thing we need to do is remove these center feathers. So let's take care of that. Now we're going to actually use the work plane. So we're going to click on the work plane and then click on one of the feathers, really any of them, but not on the ring. Click on any feather. And also, if for some reason you have a view that's like upside down, you don't want to click on the bottom of the feather. You want to click on the front face of the feather. Now when you move the work plane onto something else, every shape you then drag out after that will be automatically on that shape. In other words, if I drag out this work plane, I'm going to reset it. I'm going to click on the work plane and drag out over here so we could just see this again for educational purposes. All these flat surfaces here, if I wanted to put any one of these shapes right on one of those surfaces, I would take the work plane, click on it, and then click again on that surface where I want it. So I'm going to click on one of these feathers. And now I'm going to drag out the cylinder that's a hole. The cylinder that's gray is a hole and allows us to remove items, basically cut away parts of other items. However, it's too small. We want it to fill up basically the whole thing, which you may remember is 40 by 40. The inside's probably like 35 or 36 by 36. So this is one of those times where you probably do want to put in a number. I'm gonna be guessing here with you guys, or you can just wait to see what I figure out here. That looks more or less right. I don't want to cut too much of this ring because it's pretty thin, and then again it's going to be fragile. It's always better to probably have a little bit of these feathers inside than to cut too much because you're going to have some structural problems and it may fail. There's a fancy way where we could center this, and let's make that happen. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drag out the work plane and reset it so we don't have to look at that anymore. And now I'm going to click on just these two things. I'm going to click and drag out on the side here so I can get the ring and the hole, just those two things. And I'm going to go to Align, and I want to click on two parts of the alignment here. I want to align it in the center, going from top to bottom, which is this one right here. And then I also want to align it left and right in the center, which is this one right here. Actually, you know what? I want to do all three of them. I want to have it, oh no. I moved the belly towards me. So I want to hit undo on that one. So I made a little mistake that we'll get to learn together about. I'm going to do this again. Hit align, and it kept the middle one and that one. So instead of doing this one with the align tool, I'm going to just click elsewhere and click back on this tub. The hole reminds me of a drum or like the opening of a trash can. Anyways, and then click on the arrow forward to push through. Now that we're pushed through, we could click and select the whole thing. Click either Command A or click and drag to select the whole thing, and then hit Group. We should have a turkey napkin holder after this rendering. Voila! Now this print would need some supports. There may be a clever way to chop off the back of his feet and head and print it without supports. But you could print it as is with supports here and here. And you'll have a turkey napkin holder to admire with your family that you hand made in a computer with your hand and a mouse and your eyes and your head and your ears for listening. Thanks for listening. Bye.